Good morning. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Today is our Power of Connection weekly Twitter space. And today the topic is going to be finding your passion and purpose. And Indra and Melanie are already on stage, which is great. Indra, how are you? How was your weekend? Just checking in.
Hey Bobby, it was a great weekend. A lot of spring cleaning going on, and I can't believe that the weekend just went so fast. But it was wonderful. Thank you, and I hope you had a wonderful weekend as well.
Well, I mean, if you're spring cleaning, you must have fun, I guess. That's why I went so fast. Although I find spring cleaning to go pretty slowly, but I'm glad you enjoyed that. Uh, for me, my weekend was fun and interesting. I had conversations with my kids about the reflections on last year and plans for this year, which was interesting. And then, of course, the Oscars last night was fun for me to watch, especially because a lot of people that I really wanted to win all won, which was wonderful. And so I totally enjoyed that. Melanie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's just the weekend for me just went by super quick, and now just like I feel like already in the thick of it on a Monday. So it's just I need time to slow down a little bit. So
Okay, dokie. Well, the topic today is finding your passion and purpose. And I guess the reason why I brought this topic up is because a lot of my work in personal branding and thought leadership building and helping people with their careers or their businesses is to, again, get clarity on their purpose and direction. But the other thing that's interesting is that a lot of people talk about passion, and I'm a big believer in finding your passion and having passion be aligned with what you're doing. Although I was reading an article that talked about why I forget who wrote it. It was like someone said that why following your passion or following your passion is wrong, and I was like, what? What's that supposed to mean? And so I kind of wanted to understand what people think about that. I certainly think that if I'm going to follow a purpose, if I'm passionate about it, it's going to go a lot better than if I'm not passionate about it. So I think that for me is certainly a big thing to think about. So we invite all of you here to come up on stage, share your thoughts, ask questions. If you like this topic, you can retweet what's in the nest up above, the link there. You can also add people. You can add questions in the purple little bubble in the bottom right there, and you can talk to people and ask questions. Or you can click the arrow on top there, and you can retweet it, or you can DM people to join the conversation. So we'd love to have you up here. Meanwhile, me and my two fabulous co-hosts will definitely share a bit more about finding your passion and purpose. But for now, let's start with introductions. Indra, and then please Melanie after her.
Thanks so much, Bobby. So hello everyone. I'm Indra Bartona, a producer and TV host, and the founder of the Positivity Vibe Tribe, a global community that's here on Twitter and also on Facebook. We host weekly, actually two per week spaces, the Positivity Vibe Tribe. On Wednesday, we host a space at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about gratitude, we talk about um, strategies and tips to living a positive lifestyle. And this Wednesday, we are focusing on a introvert space. So I hope to see lots of people there, and I'll also post it up in the nest a bit later. Thank you so much, Bobby. Over to you, Melanie.
thanks, Indra. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Melanie Mitchell Wexler. I am a career coach, job search expert, and a LinkedIn strategist. I was actually a recruiter for over 20 years before I pivoted into career coaching, and I help professionals throughout North America really finding ultimately what I hope finding their dream jobs, but also finding their passions and being able to explore that. So, super excited to. This is a fun topic, so super excited to have that conversation today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'll start my introduction. My name is Bobby Omar. I am a professional speaker by trade. For the last 17 years, I've traveled around the world and delivered 1,000 keynotes and workshops, and I've done 5 TEDx talks and rejected 3 other ones. And what I currently do is I help people get clarity in their personal brand for purpose and direction, and then I help them build a thought leadership brand, which leads to TED Talks, book deals, new jobs, new business, and digital influence. So that's kind of what I do. And in terms of the topic, I mean, yeah. So let's get right into it. I'm actually gonna start by bugging my co-host and ask you quite simply, what are you passionate about, Indra?
Wow. Okay. So this could go on for a long time. This list.
Okay, you only have
I
30
think.
minutes, so okay, keep it
Okay.
short.
Okay. All right. No, I'll give you the short version. So, so I would say that what I'm passionate about is living life and learning, and I guess I'm passionate about experiencing life, and especially on the journey with like all the people that mean a lot to me. If you ask me about what am I passionate about, my interests, well, I think I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm just constantly, in search of information. I'm curious. But I'm also very passionate about serving others, about finding ways that, and I think that's why I formed the Positivity Vibe Tribe community, is because it sort of put my passion into purpose. I guess in a way, um, passionate about learning, about supporting, about kindness, about trying to continue while I grow. I feel like I'm able to help and grow the community as well. So it's sort of this beautiful kind of purpose and passion, and I don't think it'll ever end. I'm very passionate about since I was 5, having a spiritual journey of meditating, and then when I was 12, reading a lot about um, you know self-help books and self-growth. And so I don't think that curiosity will ever stop. Um, and so I'm on the journey, I guess. Um, that's a really difficult question to answer because it's so many different areas. But thanks so much, Bobby, for asking me.
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking maybe we should define what that means, what a passion is. But I'd love to hear it, Melanie. Melanie, what are the things you're passionate about?
So I'm definitely passionate about my children and just like getting just watching them as adults now. I've always been passionate about my children, but particularly just embracing them in adulthood, which because I truly like I've always like just watching them grow up. I'm just like, oh my gosh, those are my babies, and but so I just truly love them as adults and like as human beings. So I'm very passionate about them. I'm very passionate about my nonprofit in Honduras, and that came a little bit later in life. Which again, you know, these were conversations that I didn't have. It's funny, as much as my mom was very progressive, I grew up with a single mom. She was very progressive in a lot of ways. We never had, like, maybe we didn't have these conversations back in the 70s and 80s anyways, but like we just never had these types of conversations. So I kind of meandered through like college in particular and exploring different things because things would get like I would be so like I wanted to I took a black and white photography class. I love photography. So that's, probably a mini passion, or it used to be a passion, I should say. But now and I would also say like my business is like a real passion of mine. It's like really, truly we'll call it the fourth child because the Mr. Simpson, the cat's probably the real, is the third child. So, but the business is now a passion of mine. And so, those would kind of be what are probably my biggest anchors, from that standpoint. And, from in terms of where the direction of my life goes and things of that nature. But, yeah, those are the kind of, and there's like, I think there's large passions and then there's like mini passions. So, but yeah, those would be
Hey,
my like
Melanie,
major
you
ones.
just said something that really resonated. You said anchors. I love that. Can you define that? What do you mean by anchors?
Yeah, like I
That's really
mean
awesome.
the things that drive, the things that I think about that are going to drive, what are going to drive my decisions. In terms of if, being able to spend I can tell you as an parent with adult children that now it's like you have to like take advantage, like I cannot take for granted like if I get an opportunity to spend time with them, because they're out there living their own. So I have to take advantage of that as opposed to when they're in the home, they're there. But, and also, what's going to drive my decisions, I think also having lost both of my parents in back to back years and 2019 and 2020 really put a lot of things in perspective. So I don't really put up with a lot of like BS. I don't really deal with a lot of that. So that's also put a lot of things in perspective of like what's important in my life and what I want to pursue and do. But those are those are the things that keep me grounded, but also are what's going to drive my ultimate decisions and where I in what I do, or where I put my time and energy.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that when I think about passion and purpose, and you said the word anchor, I was like, that's great because when you're anchoring your life and your work and your business and whatever you care about with passion and purpose combined, then yeah, that those are things you would anchor. I mean, when I think about my passions, I'm passionate about my kids, obviously, and that's actually a purpose as well. It's something that anchors me. I'm passionate about people. And that's part of my purpose in my business. So again, that's an anchor. But I'm also passionate about musicals, and I'm passionate about the Oscars. I'm passionate about board games. Board games is a passion of mine that, I guess leads to the idea that in my work, maybe I could do something that is aligned with some sort of strategic thinking or planning. Like, I love playing chess, or like playing Settlers of Catan and Monopoly and things like that. So I love musical theater. Like I love hockey. There's a lot that I love certain sports, and so I think about how those kind of relate to everything that I care about, and that I'm passionate about cooking. I love to cook. I'm the main cook in my house, so those things come into play. So, I'm passionate about the small things, but I'm also passionate about the big things. And so, when I define passion, these are things that I easily love to do. I'm happy to. I'm game to do them. I think about them on a regular basis. I often say that passion is things that you do or act on, not just think about, not just talk about. Like there's things you act on. So, for example, like I could say, I'm passionate about photography, but I don't do it very much. So maybe I have an interest in it. Maybe it's a hobby. Photography is a hobby of mine. It's an interest of mine. A passion of things that you actually do more than just talk about them. You actually are doing them. You're acting on them, and that's often where purpose comes into play too. So I think that's why I wanted the topic around passion and purpose. Now I see a bunch of people in the audience, which is great. We'd love to have people here. You want to come up on stage and say hello, share a bit about what you're up to, and also ask questions. We would love to have this conversation going, and I'm happy to share my own thoughts on this in terms of finding your passion too, because I think that's the challenge. A lot of people, first off, it takes a long time for people to actually find their passion, mostly because they're too busy working the purpose of someone else, right? So we follow a path of purpose, usually defined by other people. Initially defined by our parents. My parents wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer when I was growing up. Then by society, you should get a go to college, get a job, and have a wife and kids and 2.1 kids, whatever that is. That's what society tells us sometimes. And then corporations. When I met people in companies, they tell, "Oh, you work for a company. It's a great company, and you can be here for 20 years and have great growth and benefits." But I felt suffocated when I worked in the corporate space, so it wasn't really for me. So that purpose is often defined by other people. Now, a lot of people, then what happens is they end up in that same situation for many, many years, and then they feel stuck, or they feel, not as purposeful. They don't feel as aligned. They don't feel as much meaning with what their work is. And so you don't want to be in that situation, especially, it's easier to break away 5 years in than it is to break away 20 years in. Because I mean, a lot of people who are 20 years in their career and they're at this director level, and they're partially miserable, partially misaligned, and partially not sure what to do, and they can't get away. And so it's very, very hard for them to find a different purpose, or to take the passion they really have and to make that leap of faith. And I could share that same story for you guys, which is, for me, I started out in engineering. I was an engineer, an aerospace design engineer for 4 years. And while I was there, I was bored. I was actually bored, and so I started a musical theater company and started producing and directing musicals on the side, on evenings and weekends. And I spent probably 40 hours a week doing that. It was so much fun for me. I loved it. We grew our nonprofit organization from 2 people to 150 people in about 4 years. All the while I was working as an engineer, a design engineer. And that made me think, though, maybe that engineering is not my passion. Like, I was good at math and physics, but it wasn't really my passion. And so I had to think of what else I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll do my MBA and I'll go into marketing, and because maybe I'm a people guy. I like people. Let's go into marketing. So I went to marketing, and then after leaving marketing and working at brands like Dove and Kraft, I realized, this is great, but it's still not fulfilling me. And so what exactly do I want to do? And so I saw in my job that there's a lot of passion in the jobs. I'm passionate about people. So I was passionate about the coworkers. I'm passionate about solving problems, and I was solving problems. I'm passionate about, you know, um, advertising and marketing. So within my brand marketing job, there was a passion of the creative aspect, but it still wasn't purposeful. Purpose is where you take not just passions, your values, your interests, your personality traits, things that mean a lot to you, and you align them with your life slash career path. And that's where it becomes a purpose. So what happened to me is after I left my corporate job, I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and what's important to me. And so that's when I kind of dove my personal brand. And I started, at the time, I didn't actually call it that. At the time, I just like, oh, let me do an analysis. And so I dove into did some self assessments on my values, personality traits. Did a lot of personality assessments. I did. I had a lot of coffee dates with people to figure out what they thought I should do, or what they thought of me. I did surveys to figure that stuff out, and eventually got to the point where I came up with a list. I came up with a list of things that spoke to me about this is what I should do with my life in terms of my living. And at the time, I didn't realize my purpose. I didn't realize it was my brand. But this is what I came up with. And I realized, number one, Bobby loves people. So whatever I do, it's got to be how to do with people. Number two, Bobby loves persuasion and influence. I love to win an argument. I love to convince people of stuff. I love to explain things. I love to teach. Bob loves to perform, present. Number three, so being on stage was always something I loved, and love singing songs, doing karaoke, things like that. Bobby loves to nurture, so I'm like my mother. I'm my mother's son. I'm a nurturer. People come to me for advice. They want advice on their relationship. They want advice on how to deal with a bad boss, and so I'd always be nurturing my friends. And then the fifth thing was Bobby loves diversity, and from that those five personal brand elements made me believe or made me realize, what, I should do a career and my purpose should be motivational speaking. So that's when I started doing that. And so for me, that's kind of how I found my passion and purpose with what I'm trying to do. So I guess my point is that the step to finding your passion and purpose is to really dive deep and do the work. Most people don't want to do the work. Why? Because it's work and it takes time. Like, I spent 3 to 6 months trying to figure this out. It doesn't have to take that long. I mean, if you were working 20 hours a week, you could actually do a lot of work in a shorter period of time, but it takes work. You have to put in the work. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. So, uh, if so for me, I guess my main take here is like you have to put the work in to find your passion purpose, but it's a really great investment because the moment you find that path of passion purpose is aligned with who you are and gets you excited every single day, makes you feel fulfilled, and helps you build a story legacy for your life. Yeah, it's the day you find that is the day you want the rest of your life to start. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting time to do that. Whenever I work with clients and they find that, and when I help them find their purpose, it's like, oh, it's so exciting. And so I love that. I'd love to hear thoughts from Melanie and Indra, and anybody else wants to come on stage and share a thought. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'll just jump right in and yeah, I mean, I do think that, I grew up where it wasn't really ever said, oh, you're going to go to college or anything. It was just kind of, I mean, I mean, I think what me and my sister both expected. But, with that all being said, too, my sister very early on in life was just like, I know this is what I want to do. Like, I think she was maybe like 10, between 10 to 12. Like, she knew very early on that she wanted to do something with music education. she most likely would be a band director. She had everything just figured out very on. And you know what? She's completely fulfilled that. Oh, she just got her doctorate. And, truth is, and she's happy. She loves what she does. She loves being able to teach others and or teach kids in particular and give them the passion of music education. And, of course, my whole entire family came from education except for me. So, so it was very interesting, I think, for me to grow up with people that had very distinct, even though we didn't use the word passion, but distinct passions and distinct purposes. And then there was, the little black sheep that was kind of like wandering around going, well, I love this and I love that and I want to do this. And so it took me a little bit longer than the rest of my group to really be able to figure that out. And I think that's something that you have to give yourself patience for, because I think sometimes when you are around others that you're like, wow, they've got it figured out. Like I should get my act together. That you've got to give your, like, we're all on different journeys, we're all on different paths, and so don't fall in that trap that you have to compare your journey to somebody else, because when you talk about passion and purpose, though, that has to be truly an individualized journey. You cannot compare that to anything else, because it is all about what is in within you, your heart, your soul, your mind. And I think that's something that's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to follow. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of people follow these templates that other people have done. But really, it's a mix. I mean, certainly there's guidelines you can use from what other people have done, but you have to forge your own path by really diving deep into it. Indra, what do you think? Any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also finding your passion, your purpose, and it's sort of this. It's like a feeling that you're trying to find for yourself, and sometimes you may need to revisit it several times. And I'm going to give you the example of that. um, Even though I was brought up very creatively, playing the violin, doing acting classes, singing, doing all these things, modeling since 5, being out in the spotlight, even as a teenager, TV hosting and things. I went the business route. Okay, so I went to college and I studied like a Bachelor of Business, and so I went on this completely different journey. I always kept putting my little toe in the creative though. And the thing is, I noticed the difference, like the feeling, like, and Bobby and Melanie were talking about this before, like, what are the things that make you really happy? Like, what are you happy doing? And so, even though, I mean, at one point, I was producing my music show in Australia and I had my full time corporate job. So, after work, I would run to the studio and we'd be recording, bands and artists and all sorts of things after work. Well, guess what? The whole day, I realized that I was just so excited to get to the studio. I mean, I was just bursting with enthusiasm to get there because producing was my passion and I didn't even realize that, at the time. So you can go along on this track and you can be doing all different things, and then at some point you can realize when you tap into, okay, well, how does this make me feel and how does that make me feel? So you can kind of compare, like, when is it when you really come to life? When is it when that spark inside you is just burning? I mean, what are the things that just light you up, that make you want to jump out of bed? Well, they're the things, and that's how you know you are you're right on the money with your passion, your purpose. And right at that moment is the time when you think you have to reflect and go, well, okay, well, here it is. I'm at this precipice of, okay, I could make a decision right now and choose one over the other. And that's what I ended up doing, is choosing the creative path after, you know, pursuing my international business, you know, um, career, flying around, and just realizing that it wasn't that I mean, it wasn't really that exciting for me flying around in London, all over Europe, to the US and back, and um, it it was kind of fun, but not really lighting my fire. So just wanted to share those pieces. Back over to you, Bobby.
Yeah, no, that was great, and again, finding those things that you love. I mean, and it reminds me of the fact that I was working really hard as an aerospace design engineer for Bombardier for 4 years, and while I was there, I was so bored that I started a musical theater company because the musical theater company was very passionate for me. I loved it. I loved going there, helping the youth, and directing and performing. It was so much fun. And so when I reflected, I was like, wow, okay, why did I do that instead of like I didn't go to lunch with my engineering friends and talk about the latest engine from some company. I would talk about pop culture. I would talk about musicals, and I would talk about things that were different. So it was some insight to understand that maybe this is not the right thing for me. Looks like we have someone on stage, which is fantastic. I love, we love having people on stage. So anybody else want to come on stage, put your hand up, share a thought, share a question, or just be here and say nice things and and feed the vibe. Lauren Lee, welcome to the stage. I'd love to have you share your thoughts or a question that you might have.
Hey, Bobby, thank you. And Indra and Melanie, thank you both. This has been really insightful, and I'm glad I caught this space. Um, Honestly, so going back, Indra talked about her passion for serving others and being a lifelong learner. And that really resonates with me, as does turning your passion into purpose. And in my case, I've sort of taken my pain and found my passion and purpose in that, specifically through investigating my own mom's cold case and now advocating not only for her, but for other victims and families, which has led to so many incredible opportunities to get justice and answers for so many. Giving a little bit of background, I have a bachelor's in operations management. I've worked in finance. That was my sort of feeling stuck and bored time, I think. And now I work in internal communications for a large tech company, as I'm kind of in this, I think, growth stage. But I feel like at 31, I'm really finally at a point where I found my passion. I'm really taking steps toward fulfilling my purpose. And, to your points, I wake up in the morning, and even when I'm exhausted, I still have that like spark of excitement over whether it's my mom's case or somebody else's case, where I'm just driven to do whatever needs to be done that day. And there's so many extra long days. At times I've joked it's almost like having two full-time jobs. But when you find your passion, I think it doesn't feel like work anymore. I mean, it has, certainly there's moments where it does, but it feels like, okay, this is my thing. And so I guess my question for you all is sort of, what's the best way that you'd suggest to balance this purpose driven passion, whatever it might be, with work, kids, keeping up with your home, your fitness, all the everyday things? Like, how do you prevent emotional and physical sort of scope creep, for lack of a better term, while still keeping momentum when it comes to pursuing your dreams and goals?
That's an awesome question. I mean, what I can tell you is that when I did the theater company, that was on the side of where I was working on my job, right? So it was a side hustle that I was building and being very passionate about. And so I think that's something that is part of what I do. There's a couple of things that I think about. Number one is finding a purpose and passion that is aligned with everything that you do and who you are is to make it seamlessly integrate with all you're doing, your work, your parenting, all that kind of stuff is the ideal thing you want to do. So, for example, in my case, I'm at the point now where I have a why statement, which is called there are lost, stuck, or unfulfilled leaders everywhere. And what that means is everywhere I go, I meet people who feel lost in their career, stuck in their work, unfulfilled in their relationships. And so, everything I do from my, you know, public speaking training to my personal branding training to my coaching, my speaking, everything I do is about helping people not feel lost, not feel stuck, not feel unfulfilled. But what's great about that why statement and my purpose, that also fits me not just as a professional speaker and coach, but it fits me as a father. It fits me as a friend. It fits me as a son. Even here, I'm always thinking about that purpose when I'm helping everything I do and everyone and even all the social justice causes that I'm involved in. So that for me is a really good way that I've been able to integrate. Not everyone can do that. So I understand that. But at the same time, it's important to do the deep dive work, because when you truly understand the things that you're passionate about and what's purposeful to you, you're going to put you're going to put time into it. But what you're going to find even more so, let's say you're working a full-time job and you're working 40 hours a week, but you have this passion purpose for this cause that's important to you, and you're putting, let's say, even 10 hours a week into it. What you'll find over time is, because you're passionate about it, because you're purposeful about it, you are more focused, and you will find actually far greater impact with the 10 hours a week you put in than the 40 hours a week on the job you're not that into. And that's actually really a fascinating thing to find out, because then what'll happen is you'll want to put more time into it. And what'll happen as you get older, or let's say you have kids. Kids are another great focus and purpose for us, because when you have them, like, well, they won't go away, so they're there, and there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of focus on parenting. And so you may have a job that was 60 hours a week, but now you're like, guys, I gotta go pick up my kids. I gotta take care of my kids, and now your purpose and priorities are shifting, and so you will shift and evolve as your life changes as you go along. And so, I mean, finding a way to integrate all these things, I mean, that is one of the biggest challenges for a lot of us. But if you stay rooted in your values, you stay rooted in your passion purpose, you will actually fit the things that matter to you more than the ones that don't. And eventually, a job that doesn't actually have any fulfillment at all. And a good example for me was the engineering job. I mean, at least when I was doing brand marketing, there was some creativity in it that I enjoyed. There was people that I really, really loved. So there was something there. But with engineering, like for me, I was just sitting in front of a computer, just designing, parts of a plane, and it was repetitive, and I was bored out of my mind. Eventually, you will find something to replace it, or you'll have the courage to leave. The other thing I'll say is, once you actually dive into your passion purpose and you find your brand and your purpose, you're going to actually want to put together a plan, working with a coach or community, to actually leave and do something else. And so that's also, an important piece to keep in mind too. I'd love to hear from Indra and Melanie. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, I will say that I am not a poster child for balance by any stretch of the imagination. So I still struggle with this to some degree. Probably more so right now because my business is growing. But when I started coaching, I'll be very honest with you, I started coaching out of more necessity than I did out of like passion or anything like that. I did it simply because I was rebuilding financially from a really rough previous year. So, what happened though was I was working a corporate recruiting job for a firm in DC. Um, and it was good. It wasn't great. It was, but I was just happy to be somewhere relatively solid and stable for the time being. And all of a sudden, this little thing that I started to earn cash and earn money started to build itself and grow. And one of the things that I do have that I will say is probably a superpower is when I'm on top of my game, I can organize like a mad woman and I can juggle about 50 things. I've done it with my kids, from them playing sports to theater to school to, they both had, crazy schedules. So I had a job that I literally worked, I was a recruiter for 20 years while they were growing up. And that job required 60, sometimes even, 70 hours a week. And I had to travel. So when this little business started growing, I literally was juggling it while working full time. And it does feel like it's a full-time job. I'm the first person to tell you it can be exhausting sometimes. But I loved what I was doing, and I loved that I did it on my own. And I was so proud of myself and so I just kept, pouring into it. What ended up happening was I got notice that I was getting laid off. And truthfully, I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared. I was literally like, okay, this is just the sign that I needed. If I'm going to do this, let's just take the chance and see what happens if I do it full time. Because I had been building a fairly successful business on very limited time, very limited resources. So what would happen if I did it full time? And now we're like 5 years later, and now it's continuing to grow. So I think you have to, like what Bobby said, the things that you really get excited about, it doesn't really seem like a lot of energy or effort, from the most part. I mean, you definitely are tired at the end of the week, but you love what you do, so it isn't necessarily quote unquote work. And I'm the first to say too that I realize that people aren't necessarily in places where they can just be like, okay, I'm going to go pursue this, hope. You have to have a plan. You have to have some proof that this is going to work, or you have a direction. So building that, establishing your foundation, and then there usually does come a time where, depending on what's happening in your life, you're going to be able to make a decision of which direction you're going to go in, and where do you want to invest more of your time and more of your energy. So I hope that helps. And like I said, I'm still a work in progress when it comes to this. Um, so I'm still learning this myself.
Indra, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. So I realized that I had this kind of good approach to balance and productivity. And I would say pretty much after college, when I was focusing like on the corporate, on the project management kind of areas, and it really, that's why I was able to get so much done in a day. I was able to go to my corporate job and then go and produce this music show in the evening. And the thing is, the fun part about it was that I discovered this by accident. um, I actually would always, we'd always have like these, I'd be mentoring, all these kind of teens who had interest, on, oh, like cameras and lighting, and they want to get their hands on all the different things, right? So it was just kind of automatic that I would, help them to plan not just like their, how they were going to navigate time, and negotiate with their parents about the time that they needed, but also to get them, structuring their day, like in the morning before school, after school, because this is when like they want to put their passions right, really go and explore things, try different things, like maybe like there was a couple that wanted to be like camera operators or cinematographers. So this, so that's how like the, and another way, and I still have, we still have youth, that we involve in our projects and mentor and coach. And, that kind of stepped, was a stepping stone into me coaching people as well, and realizing those facets. But the thing is that for me is that I will actually on, and the easiest way that I do it is on a Sunday evening is I actually go through what is like my planned meetings for that week, and I revise them because sometimes times shift, everything changes. I go through and I really revise. Do I need to be attending all these meetings? Is there a way also, like I like like after, towards this, the end of this space, I'm actually going to be probably in the car driving to a meeting. So are there ways that we can also utilize our time in the best way, balance things? So I plan on a Sunday night, I figure out the work pieces that I need to be sitting and working at my desk, and I just kind of do a quick kind of overview of what my week looks like. And then each morning, in the morning, I just really just go over and plan everything. And I make sure on the morning that I have enough breaks, that I'm also doing the things that I want to do as well in between. Like making sure there's, like, I even schedule food breaks. And at first, this may sound like, okay, this is a lot of planning, but it actually isn't, because on Sunday night, it gives me a clear picture when I look across the rest of the week of what is in front of me. And it sort of gives me this comfort level to see, okay, well, this is what my week is. And then I also see, what are my opportunities? What are the windows of opportunities? If I could have another meeting, a meeting pops up, or if there's an opportunity to go and do something that I really like. Oh, I could fit in a hike here. I have an hour and 20 minutes here. And if I just push one other thing aside, that's during my lunchtime. So guess what? I'm going to run up the mountain or, you know, do a ballet class or a yoga class or whatever it is that I want during my week. So I'm very much into the planning and just being mindful of the time that each of these things, you know, the activities, the meetings, you know, seeing what makes a good flow, right, throughout the week and bringing it back into balance with, you know, self-care basically, making sure that, you know, I'm the basics, hydrating, meals, you know, anything else that needs to be done, family, all those things, you know, are kind of in balance and I'm not just focusing on work, 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 work. So they're just some thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, I think that, as you hear from each of our stories, we all have different stories in which how we got to where we are, and we're all continually still working on that journey as we go along. And I think that, again, I would say that if you are finding results, impact, alignment, and joy or fulfillment with what you're doing, that's something to take notice of. And then also, doing deep dive work and getting real clarity in your personal brand is a great investment for you to really understand how it fits in the overall framework of the life you want to build for yourself and design for yourself. And uh, and, and I think that goes a long way to doing that. But part of it is, well, we also have to test things out and put things out there and see what's going on, because it also takes time to figure out what purpose actually aligns with what you can do for a living, right? So there's the whole ikigai aspect of doing something you love, what the world needs, and actually people will pay for it. And so finding something that fits with that also goes a long way for what you're trying to build. So Lauren, we love your question. That was a really good question. So stay on stage. Please participate with the conversation. We do love it. Anybody else want to come on stage? We'd love to hear from you. I see Manny's up here because I invited him up here. Manny, anything you'd like to share today with us? Question or comment?
I'm just in between calls. I saw that you were running this space, so I thought I'd hop on just to support. But the topic, it really resonates with my story. For those of you that may know or may not know, I've been working with Bobby and Melanie with the Thought Leadership Branding Club now for a couple of weeks, and my previous career path was one that I went a whole lifetime thinking I'd be working in one role. And a few years ago, I made the shift over to entrepreneurship, and currently, I'm doing something 180 of what I thought I would be doing for the beginning portion of my life, if you want to say. And working with Bobby, working with Melanie, and being on this journey, um, it's comforting to see that we're all on this roller coaster, and gaining that clarity and finding that purpose, or getting clear on what our true purpose is, really does make it or break it. Having these individuals in my life, it's really allowed me to push through some of the mindset hurdles that I've been facing, and then working with Bobby as well, getting really clear with who my target audience is. um, it's interesting to see. Like, my previous career path was one in healthcare. I thought that I would be saving lives, but in my current role, I'm working in a similar capacity in an entirely different industry. I'm helping people with their finances. I'm helping them manage one of the largest debts that they'd probably be taking on in their lives, in terms of their real estate and their home home financing. And there are days where I start to question whether I made the right decision coming into this industry, taking on this role. But again, having the right support systems in place really does make a difference. And again, I was just hopping on in between calls this morning. Um, and I thought I'd hop on just to show a little bit of support. Again, first time, I think, speaking on a Twitter space. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Woohoo, Manny! That's great. I'm so glad to hear you share that thought. And I want to comment on the aspect you mentioned about community, right? So, we have a community called the Thought Leadership Brand Club, and actually, Melanie's part of that community. and Manny just joined that community too. But basically, it's a community, or it's actually like a community and a mastermind of people who want to grow to the next level. They want to hang out with different diverse experts and different things. So we basically support one another. We have weekly calls. We have a private WhatsApp group where we share goals and wins, and we share articles, and we ask questions, and we talk about our businesses, talk about our careers, talk about our lives. And it's a really, wonderful, and sometimes just a great support network. And part of our goal is also to help people find their passion and purpose, to find their thought leadership brand and personal brands, and build their businesses and careers. So I'm really glad that we're doing that. And actually, if you look on the nest above, I put in a tweet. We're doing a workshop called on storytelling, and and this is actually brought to you by the Thought Leadership Brand Club. We actually are putting these workshops together. It's a free workshop. You're welcome to come to it. And the goal is to help you develop your talks and to build more influence. Because if you have a clear talk about who you are and what you do, that's going to attract people to you and your brand and ultimately give you opportunities. So that's why the Thought Leaders Brand Club is such a really awesome thing. So if you want to learn more about it, you can certainly ping me or ping Melanie, and we can tell you more about it. Because hey, we would love to have more people in our group. So with that though, let me also pivot now to another question, which is, what stops people from? And again, if anybody wants to come on stage, I see lots of people in the audience, which is great. Keep pinging this out. If you're learning a lot from this, why don't you share an insight? Take a picture of the page, put it on Twitter, put it on Instagram, put it on LinkedIn, tag us, tag me, because if you tag me with an insight that that was shared, or you tag me and Melanie and Indra with something that you found really insightful, then I see it. I'll then retweet to my 500,000 followers, which means that it will get more people in the room, which means you might get a couple more followers, and it's all win-win. So we encourage you to actually, not just listen in, but actually share some thoughts and share your ideas with us in here. Okay, so thanks so much for doing that. I do appreciate it. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what stops people from finding their passion and purpose. I mean, I kind of alluded to it already, and some of us have our issues. But what stops people from finding their passion and purpose? I mean, I would say generally speaking, we get very stuck in our ways. We get stuck with the status quo, and we kind of start to just feel that's kind of the routine for us, and so it's hard for us to get out of that rut that we might be in. The other thing, of course, is we haven't actually done the work into diving our brand to really understand who we truly are and what we're all about. So we don't actually even know what we're missing, or we don't even know that we're misaligned, because we're just like, well, I'm really good at cybersecurity, so let me just keep doing that the rest of my life. And you feel good because you're good at it, but is it serving the purpose that you want? Maybe you have another passion, maybe you have other interests or alignments that are not being leveraged by it. So that's something that we don't. And then the third thing, of course, which is the hardest one, is certainly the leap of faith to leave what you're currently doing, especially if you've been there for a long time, to do something completely different, or just and it's hard. Like, it's hard. I mean, we have a lot of fears, we have a lot of doubts, there's a lot of uncertainty, and so the uncertainty of it, the overwhelm of where do I start, what do I do, all these things hold people back from really taking the time to understand their passion and purpose. But I wanted to kind of throw it to the floor here and to see what do you guys think? What holds us back?
I mean, I think fear holds most people back. The fear of the unknown, all the what ifs that well, what if this fails? What if, I can't leave, I can't leave my full time job because I don't, I'm not going to have the benefits. I'm not going to have, I mean, we can be our own, we can stop ourselves in the track about asking ourselves all the what ifs and all those things, and just fearful of like failing, and like, well, what if I fail? Then I've let my family down, I've let my, like there's we go down these rabbit holes, and so sometimes you get so deep down that rabbit hole that it takes a while to build itself back up. And I think that's the biggest, I mean, I really truly feel like fear is the biggest obstacle, of because truthfully, um again, I didn't necessarily plan on having my little business that has grown, but one of the things is, as I was like, okay, well, what about this? It's like, okay, well, let's figure out a solution, So, like, once I was in the middle of it, and then I was like, okay, there's no turning back. Once you get into that routine, it's a little less scary. It's still scary. I mean, there's still scary things, but, it's still, but fear, I think, is the biggest thing that holds people back.
I think that's another reason why it's so important to have a community of people who have gone through the same thing. Why it's important to have conversations like this to tell people you are not alone. We've all been there. When I started my path, it was terrifying. It was scary because at the time I felt like a failure because I got let go of my corporate job, right? I got packaged out, I got let go, I felt like a loser. And now here I am working on my brand to figure, okay, I guess, and now I'm going to be a motivational speaker. Who the hell do I think I am, right? But having done the personal brand process and having understand my values and having dozens of people tell me that, no, no, Bobby, you'll be really, really good at this. Just think about the stuff you've done as a camp counselor, all the things you've done as a leader for youth. You'd be so good. Oh, okay, okay. And then so I had to work on that, but I definitely was terrified at first. Um, David came up on stage. I'm assuming he's put his hand up because he wanted to specifically talk about this. Is that true, David? Otherwise, I'll go to Indra. But David, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Thank you. All. Let me know if you cannot hear me. Thanks to Indra and both of you guys as well. So whoever mentioned before about fear, that's my primary fear and also motivation. I've come a long way from going to up top in corporate to being a ex hacker, black hat hacker, to now kind of reliving that life again. But I guess easier said than done. Losing jobs, getting jobs, contract jobs. When not 99.9% of things can go right, but it's that point zero, the one thing that you do wrong. For me, is what distracts me the most. And as an ethical hacker now, it still gets to me. It still makes me feel like a failure. And but following Indra, like I read these every day, and the posts are really truly inspiring. um, I'm honestly gonna say, like, I don't follow the advice as much as I should, but maybe it's a new mantra, and I don't know. I don't have much really to add here except from technology, but this is a really really great collective, I'll call it, and just want to thank you all, and never give up in your dreams, and yeah, again, easier said than done. Right now, I'm not in the best situation, but um, I tend to sound happy behind that. There's a lot of sadness, but it's groups like this that I think inspire people to achieve what they don't know that they can.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, David. And I can understand the challenges people have, and I've been through that whole difficulty. And that's again why we have these rooms. These rooms are about making people feel heard, making people feel connected, making people feel like they're not alone. That's another reason why we have these communities, right? So, when we started the Thought Leadership Brand Club community, there's a lot of people in there who are starting out or trying to figure things out, or they're not sure where they're going or where they can be. But because they have access to me and Mel and the other people, they'll ask questions, or they'll say, I'm feeling down today, or they'll come on a call and say, hey, like, look, having a rough week. And that is so important when it comes to doing that. We talk about, following your dreams and building your dreams and trying to figure out what's the best path for us is an important journey, but it's really hard to do it by yourself. And that's why, again, community is so important. So I do appreciate that. Indra, I want to see if you had anything you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for your kind words about the Positivity Vibe Tribe. And it really means a lot to me to hear that, all the things that we do behind the scenes is making a difference, and it's helpful, and supportive to the community. That that just what you said, just it made my entire day. I was up last night, kind of going crazy, working on content for the community, and so when I hear these things, it makes it 200% kind of worth it and beyond. Thank you so much, Bobby. I did want to share something about, your question was really I think it went deep, because the things that do hold us back is also, okay, so when we're about to make a change, and even we are trying to find our way, often there's people around us that are not always going to be supportive in the way that we want. And they might think that they're being helpful, because they're like, oh no, stay in the, in your safe job, or stay in the corporate, And the thing is that we still need to make provisions, right, for moving from A to B, right? We need to save whatever it is, get out of debt, whatever those things are that we need to do. We need to take care of business, right? Regardless, we can't just leap. Oh, I have a dream, because that's not a good plan. It's just not solid. But in the process, even in the process, as you start to share sometimes with friends and family, you will be surprised at who is going to shoot these ideas down and your passions down and say, "Oh no, but you're really good at, you know, um, you know, managing these big corporate accounts, or you're really good at doing, and you're sort of like, oh my gosh, like I'm just dying inside, like a piece of you is dying by continuing on your path. So the thing is that you might be surprised at who are the people that are not supporting you. And as much as you can, you're just kind of, I guess, particularly with family and friends, you try to do your best by pacifying, them to a certain extent, but you let them know that you are on a path, And I was very surprised at how some people got very aggressive, you know, in lecturing me about certain things, and sort of, hey, young lady, blah blah blah, you need to be back doing what you studied for, and so you have to figure out, sometimes the only way is that you need to create a little bit of space, and that may not be long term, but really you need to keep your mind and your heart clear and on the path that you're doing, because you're a transition stage is a lot to endure, really. And these kind of pressures from external forces that are not being supportive can just derail the whole thing. Like, you're just, oh no, I'm just going to go and sit there at my job and I'm just going to suffer this out. What, I've only got another 60 years left, whatever it is. So that's the thing. So just be prepared to have the obstacles. And I think the main thing is these obstacles of, the support network that we are relying on, we may be surprised. So what I would say is that you really have to be your own best friend, and sometimes just take this on, um, wear those shoulder pads. Where are those shoulder pads? I know I've got some aunties that wear those still. Um, but literally, we really have to just be aware that we're going to have to solidify our own plan, and do, take in feedback from others. But just remember that if it is kind of weighing you down, to then shut that off or turn that switch off and just put a little bit of distance for a little while. Send them a text instead of having phone calls with them for a little while. Maybe there's some strategic ways that you can just get your headspace away from them. So they're just some thoughts, Bobby, that kind of came to mind when you asked that question. I thought, oh, whoa.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic because we have a lot of naysayers in our circle, right? And part of it is you want to turn those naysayers into yay sayers, or you want to create space from them because they're holding you back, or you want to find allies who can be better yay sayers versus naysayers in your network. So that's, again, another reason why, again, entrepreneurs and people who are aligned a certain path, they get together with masterminds or communities with each other. So that's a whole other thing that they do. So I think I'm glad you brought that up. And it's funny, it's funny myself. I thought of my mom. I love my mom. She's 78 years old, but she did say, Bobby, have you ever thought about, she calls me Rehan. Rehan, have you thought about going back to engineering? I'm like, Mom, that was 4 careers ago, 25 years ago. Like, no way am I doing that. I mean, and I told her, Mom, do you want me to make lots of money and be miserable, or do you want to be happy? She's like, oh, I want to be happy. Good. I'm happy, Mom. because she's like, oh, you could make so much money as an engineer. I'm like, okay, but I don't want to do that anymore. So, and another story I'll tell you is my sister. Um, my family are all overweight, including myself, my brother, my sister, my mom. And my sister lost 150 pounds and was just doing, she went from 300 plus to 150 pounds. It was amazing. But her biggest naysayers were her mom and her husband. They said, "Oh, you're too skinny," and no, and all that kind of stuff. And I told her, I said, "Sis, I support you 100% because you're doing this for yourself, and you don't need any naysayers around you." And so I told her that. But unfortunately, the influence of her mom, who she talks to every day, my sister and my mom are really, really close, and her husband, of course, influenced her. And, she went back up again, and now she's back on trying to do things. And it was a bit of a struggle for her. So, having the naysayer, especially a partner, if your partner, your spouse is not a yaysayer or not supportive of what you're doing, that's a huge barrier to overcome. So you need to make sure you have that conversation and be able to have that alignment. Lauren Lee, your hands up. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Bobby. I wanted to go back really quick to something that Indra said that really kind of speaks to me. Talking about going through your planned meetings for the week, reevaluating sort of your agenda and prioritizing accordingly. I love the idea of this morning strategy session. I think I personally need to do a better job of scheduling breaks for myself during the day. I'm definitely that person who does better with checklists and outlining priorities. So I just think that viewing the week strategically is kind of a huge game changer. I do it on sort of a daily basis, but I think taking that time on Sunday morning or Monday morning and just kind of planning a week ahead is awesome. And also, too, I thought of Laura Vanderkam wrote about the 168-hour week. And that really stuck with me when I started this. Like, okay, how am I spending those 168 hours? Because when you take away 40 hours for work and 8 hours a night for sleep, and then time for eating and showering and spending time with your family, it starts to add up quickly. And then you can start to feel a little anxious, right? But I think what's important is kind of realizing now that those hours might be allotted differently every week. Like I talk about balance, and I was asking about balance before because you're like, I have 10 different priorities every week and I need to make sure they all have equal time. But I might have like a podcast interview or be doing canine search and rescue training or have a birthday party for my daughter or have to meet with police about my mom's case. So I think one big takeaway for me from today's call, and maybe for others listening too, is just to give myself some grace as it relates to balance, because balance isn't the goal. Doing what speaks to your soul and sort of further aligns you with your purpose is. So this is just kind of all really validating to me when it comes to pressing forward and really rethinking my plan as I move through this whole life shift. So I just wanted to say thank you all for that.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Lauren Lee. And David, I think, did you put your hand up too? Did you want to say something?
Sorry. Wow. Lauren just took the words out of my mouth. Again, I cannot be more grateful and. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of speechless here, but again, I feel that this will all resonate with everyone in the absolute most powerful, positive way. Bobby, I see you have another. I'm not sure if Indra's going into it too in the next 18, 20 minutes, but the more and more I can do of this, it doesn't matter about my background or any of that nature. It's more or less of being positive. One thing I did want to mention, and you can cut me off on being too long here, is I do often do talks about suicide awareness, and only because I've gone through it before. And when things get rough, it gets tough, and oftentimes we overlook the most simplistic things. And just the story I'm personally open, willing, and able to to talk about. As hard as it is, if I can help someone else, then fine. I mean, I could be shamed, famed, doxxed. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to say kudos and great job to everybody. And I'm sorry that I haven't joined into more of these conversations.
No, no, we're glad to have you. It's always good to have people here all the time. And I actually have another thought I want to bring in, but Melanie put her hand up. So Melanie, go ahead.
Yeah, so one I want to just say to Laura and just to everybody, like, so for example, I sent Bobby a massive to-do list for the Thought Leadership Branding Club yesterday. I'm sure last night actually.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was fantastic.
So
Here, Bobby, here are 17 things we need to do. No, I'm
things that we
kidding. I'm
have to
kidding.
accomplish. That's so but I was also going to say that we all the grace part is so important, that we do have to give grace to ourselves. Second of all, we're not going to get it all done every single week, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. We just have to make sure that the most important things are the things that are, that are being taken care of. And you know what? And sometimes there are things that are going to have to take a back seat to when, especially for our kids and, family members and things of that nature. And that's okay. We can come back to it. It doesn't mean that we're failing. It just means we're human, we're living a life. And the other thing too is that when you go through these transitions, it's sometimes really hard for people to understand that maybe are working a 40-hour work week or consistent, the Monday through Friday, I can log off, I can go, to happy hour, I can go off and do this or that. And when you're like, no, I gotta, I'm sorry, I can't take that time, I need to do, this project, or I have a deliverable. I even got, we get comments from people that I don't think people really understood. Like, I work like constantly. I really do, because when I'm not on the phone with a client, then I'm, there's other times that I have to then actually do the work for the client, or I have to, be doing things for the business and think, so there, so if I work out, say at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not living the life of this, fabulous entrepreneur that can just come and go as she pleases. I do have flexibility over my schedule, so that is a bonus that I have. And but at the same time, it's also where I'm fitting it in. And so, just because on the surface, I think people initially would be critical. Like, they'll be critical of what you're doing sometimes. Like, oh, it must be nice to work out at 12 o'clock. You know what? It's when I could fit it in. So yeah, it is nice, but it doesn't mean that I'm not working hard. So you have to sometimes keep those voices, both externally and internally, at bay, to keep your mind focused on the end goal. So I think that's also something important, because some people are not going to understand what you're doing, because it's not what they do. And it's not their, but at the end of the day, it's not their life or their business.
Yeah, and I think that's why mindset is a huge part of the journey, right? And again, if you take the time to dive deep in your personal brand, to understand who you are, how people experience you, what your personality traits are, what your values are, what your passions are, and what kind of purpose you create for yourself, that also feeds the mindset. It helps with the mindset. It builds a foundation for mindset and confidence to propel yourself forward. So I think that's important. Also, with mindset, having a community goes a long way too, to navigate that mindset, because oftentimes in our community calls, we'll talk about the mindset issue that people are having. I have mindset. We all have mindset issues at some point or another. So I think it's important to understand that as well. And I do have another point I'm going to make in a second, but I see one's coming up stage and Dave wants to speak. So David, go ahead.
So, sorry guys, not to take over. Just one question. I'm not the professional or as experienced as you guys are, but when one is feeling doubt, or like Melanie and Lauren and several others mentioned, Indra as well. Like, let's just say, like, for example, today I'm having a really, really bad day. Um, like, what would you suggest, aside from reading books, would be the best way to, like, accomplish? Of course, what works for one person may not work for the other, but I mean, again, I need to do more of these, but what's to maybe how should I say it? Okay, in a nutshell, to benefit somebody from having to go to the deep end, and that means, like, not committing a crime, etc., and just to hold still and keep your right mental tact intact, and and play it every day if that's possible.
Well, first off, these things happen to a lot of us all the time, to many people. And so I'd say that how do we navigate those fears and doubts and things that we have that are coming down the pipeline that are making us go in a, like a downward spiral and whatnot. Number one, having a support network that you can reach out to is incredibly important. So try to make sure you have those. Now we have different types. We may have family that we can talk to. We may have several best friends we may talk to. We may have an entrepreneur. We have a community of entrepreneurs, or a church community, or we may have an online community like here in the Thought Leaders Brand Club, or the Positive Vibe Tribe. We have different communities. So having community, I think, is incredibly important. Sometimes it's good to have a coach or a professional help that can help you as well. The other thing I find really helpful is the idea of having a clear alignment, like having my why statement, having my vision, having my purpose statement, having my planned business of who I care about and what I do. I find that works really well to revisit that because my why statement fires me up and because I know my purpose. And then the other thing I would say is that it's important for us, and we already talked about this, grace, self-care, right? It's okay to have a non good day and go take a nap, or go see a movie, or read a book, or do something just to get away from it all, meditate, whatever you might want to do. I think that self-care piece is also incredibly important that a lot of people don't take into consideration. Indra, Melanie, what do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely, Bobby. And I was just going to say, David, I was just thinking about your question, and I always think, you know, what your limitations are, and how deep or how dark you can still go and pull yourself back. Like, you do understand your levels. So if you do feel like, okay, well, I need to talk to a professional about this on a weekly basis, or I need to reach out and have some sort of a situation while I'm transitioning, then that is not only okay, but that is good if you've already identified that. The other thing is, I don't know anybody that doesn't have dark days. Okay. I know Little Miss Positivity Vibe Tribe sitting here, waving my hands, telling you that uh, I have some dark days and I have some dark moments, but and I certainly do, and particularly of self doubt. Even I've come this far, and then I'm working on creative projects, and it's just a part of the human condition, the way we are, that sometimes even the way we're structured, even if you think of it from primitive times. I mean, look, we have over 70,000 thoughts that, on average, that just start, you know, floating into our minds at rapid speed. And our subconscious is busy working like just nonstop. So, what I would say to anybody that hasn't ever tried relaxation and meditation, or even if you've never tried any of that, there's affirmations that can really help. And this is something that I do, particularly if I've woken up and I've just thought, there are some days where I know something is going, like there are things that are going, bad things that are going to happen, or something. There's this little, I've already gotten up out of bed the wrong way. Things just start like, okay, that's two. Oh no, please, not three. And it does happen, right? So there are some days that your day is not going to go always perfectly. And on those days where I feel like, okay, well, all right, it's 10 o'clock. I really need to do something here. I'm going to push this meeting, and I'm going to actually take some time for myself. I'm going to push it to 10:30, and I'm going to take 30 minutes for myself. And what I do is I have these different affirmations that I use, and they're kind of like they're little backups for me for different things. And what I did for some of my private clients is, and this is available to all of you, and I have some other ones for them specifically, but on my YouTube channel I have guided affirmations. Now the benefit of doing these is they're under 10 minutes. So even if you're having a crazy busy day, or you're just like, wow, I don't know what to do, jump in and try these, because it's not just affirmations. There's music that's very relaxing. There's also breath work. So this breath work does a couple of different things. It prepares you to receive the affirmation, and it also helps you to de-stress and to relax.
right? So particularly if you're working yourself up and things are not going well, then we need to just stop and focus. And a lot of the time, this can really help. It helps me. It's helped a lot of other people. And that's why I created more when I first started this, because of all the feedback and the requests. So there's different things. And then there's also meditations. There's lots of meditations, and most of them, except for the chakra clearing meditation, for your energy centers, is still under 10 minutes. So they're just some suggestions. It may or may not work for you, but the other thing is, with new things, you do have to be persistent, and you do have to do it on a regular basis. So invest 10 minutes every day in either a guided affirmation or a guided meditation. And it doesn't even have to be from my channel. You could just search them. So they're just some thoughts.
Thanks, Indra. Lauren, get your hand up. Go ahead.
So I wanted to go back to something that Indra just said, talking about how we all sort of have bad days. I feel like after a lot of things I've been through, I feel like our bad days sometimes lead to our best days. So a year ago, just to put it in perspective, I was in a totally different place with my mom's cold case investigation. Very quick backstory on that. She was killed in 1993. I didn't know about her cold case until someone approached me on Facebook in 2020, started looking into it, discovered her entire autopsy was wrong. It was completed by a guy who later lost his license. There were just so many issues in her original case, and that sort of, the passion that I had for my mom is what really drove me to learn how to investigate cases, to get connected with local private detective associations, and to make all these different connections across the United States and honestly the world to learn how to do a better job. And that led to advocating for others as well. But last year, around actually this time, almost exactly, I was at this point where I'd gotten our state's chief medical examiner, an independent expert pathologist, and thousands of other people to support my mom's cold case. And specifically to support it being reopened, her to be exhumed, everything to be reinvestigated. And I was so excited, but I felt really hopeless because no matter what I did, the state wouldn't respond. And it's sort of like, well, where do you go when you're knocking on doors and no one's answering? And I thought about quitting, and I actually went one day, like right around this week last year. I went to this little lake near my house and I sat on a rock and I just like meditated and sat there and thought, totally undistracted. And I was like, okay, it if I gave up right now and like walked away from this case and this whole project I've been doing and all the work I've been putting in, like, and just went back to my normal everyday life, like, could I be okay with that for the rest of my life? And I sat there and really thought about it, and I just decided I couldn't. And I think that's where passion comes into play, because it's like once you know it, once you feel it, you can't imagine your life without it. So I chose to keep pressing forward, and it made all the difference because 2 months later, through a friend of mine, I actually got in touch with a local media group, and they had these excellent investigative journalists who took one look at the case and went, "Yep, we're going to fight for you." And it was adding their voices to the mix that ended up leading to the state agreeing to re-examine the case, which led to the case being reopened last November, which led to my mom being exhumed on February 1st of this year, which led to just last week I was on News Nation with Brian Hinton, and before nobody would listen to me, and now so many people are supporting my mom. And so I think now, learning from that, and for anybody who's listening to this right now, I've learned to embrace my bad days as opportunities. And I know that no matter how bad things get, it's a stepping stone to the next step for you in your life and on your path. And I mean, I'm just honestly at this point, I'm always grateful for the little failures because they're lessons learned. And, I'll never be in that place again, because now I know that, I didn't stop, I didn't back down, and I pushed through and I achieved something that I never really, 100% thought that I would. I just had this hope. And I think anybody who's got that hope and that dream and that goal for themselves, whatever it is, like, just know that you can do it. And, I really appreciated what Indra said. So thank you all.
Thanks for sharing that. As I always say, you win some, you learn some. And I think that, the other message about resilience is important because, resilience requires us to go endure hardship and to get to a place where we can actually get to somewhere else and learn from those mistakes, give ourselves some grace, and just fight another day. So I think that's a really important message. David, you had your hand up. What did you want to say?
No, I didn't. I put it down. Thank you, Lauren, for explaining that. Wow, that was very, very powerful. I was just going to ask, like we all mentioned about good and bad days. Wow, how to get through it. The meditation is one thing. Indra and Bob, Melanie, Lauren, everybody else. If I may, again, I'm sorry to take up so much time. This is really the only way I get to express myself because I'm really an introvert. With regards to taking medication, like for me, it's anxiety, depression. When I used to live in Shanghai, China, it was way different because the Eastern culture, I would take herbal teas, and it felt great. Way prior to COVID, when I came back to the States, I went back onto my anti-anxiety medication, which doesn't work, and I don't know. I just wanted to get you guys, opinion on that, and yeah. As far as the rest, extremely super super positive, and thank you so much for making oh man, for making my day and many others.
Sorry, Dave, to be clear, what was your question? You wanted a comment on what exactly?
A comment on taking like anti-anxiety medication. So Western culture, me, like I'm a Caucasian guy. I live in New York City, now in New Jersey, but I lived in Shanghai, China for about a few years. There, I didn't have to take medication. It was more herbal, teas, remedies. I've been to Mumbai as well, but coming back to the States, it was just take these pills, which yes, it's It's like putting a band-aid on a heartache, if that makes sense. But what your guys' opinion is on medication and ways to go above that, because I'm trying to wean myself off, and I'm starting to find that I am a little bit happier, but sometimes it is needed. So I'll be the first to admit, and I have no shame, but yeah, that's what I do.
Well, I think that the general take is that everyone's journey is different, and what works for one person may not work for another person. So, trying to find different ways and avenues to navigate and cope and manage with things, whether we do it through mindset or through exercise or through medication or whatever it might be. Everyone has to figure that out. My nephew actually he had trouble with with depression and things like that, and eventually was able to get off his meds, but then had an episode and decided to go back on for a certain period of time. And I think, again, that's his journey, that's his choice, but he was choosing that path based on what he knew, with the love and support of his family as well as his trusted advisors and medical team. So we all have to do what works for us to figure those things out. So I think that would be my general take on that. And I do want to segue though, and because a couple things I want to talk about before we actually end the room, because we're a little bit over time. Normally go. Normally it's every week at 11 a.m. the Power Connection chat, and we should go for an hour, sometimes hour and 15. Hour we're nearing an hour and a half. A couple things I want to say before I get Melanie and Indra to kind of give their final thoughts. Um, First off, I put in the nest above that I'm actually running a free workshop on how to become a TEDx speaker. So every single one of you has a story. Every single one of you has something that would be a powerful thing to share with the TEDx community. And I think that if you want to learn how to do that, I'm going to share exactly how you can do that. And I'm even going to make the promise that if you actually do exactly my methodology, having done 5 TEDx talks and having rejected 3 other ones, I can guarantee you a TEDx talk if you're willing to do the work. So that's something that you might find really interesting. It's on March 29th coming up. So take a look at that. And then the other thing I want to say was, there was a conversation regarding, um, I want to talk about fear versus doubt. So someone else had said how fear had actually motivated them. And we often talk about how fear actually we have to overcome our fears. And so one of the things that I've learned is that when I really drill down into fears, fear is interesting because fear can hold us back, but fear also can fuel us and motivate us to do something about. Like I remember when I had a diabetes scare and I was really angry and fearful about, my life turning in a bad way. I decided to go do something about it, and I was able to lose a lot of weight and get my blood sugar down and things like that. But the really more difficult one is doubt. Doubt is really, really the big problem because doubt doesn't really motivate us. And so, and doubt is related to fear because there's doubt and uncertainty about, what if we did this, or what if, Melanie just said that, what if we did, what if this, or what if this, or what if this might happen. So we want to try to make sure that whenever doubts show up, what are we doing to overcome those doubts by having a support network, by talking to people, by sharing with others, by finding ways to make ourselves accountable, by meditating, self-care, compassion, taking a day off, all things you can use to help you get that. And I think things like community, things like coaching, things like clarity on your purpose and your path are all going to help you overcome those doubts that we have on a regular basis. So I just want to make that final point. And with that, I'd love to get Melanie and Indra's final thoughts. And then, of course, please promote. Make sure you follow Melanie and Indra. They're doing some really great work here as well as on LinkedIn and other platforms as well. So I do appreciate them being my wonderful co-host. And I also thank everyone who's been here. Like all these people that have been here is fantastic. Make sure you share the replay and the recording. Share like 2 or 3 insights you learned from the space. And then that way you'll help your followers. You can tag me. I'll retweet it then to my 500,000 followers. And that's going to be a win-win for everybody. So Melanie, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just give yourself some time, give yourself permission to pursue. Going back to our original topic, we covered a lot today. Just give yourself time to pursue things that are of an interest to you. Really explore that. You owe it to yourself, and truthfully, you also owe it to your family and your friends to be the best version of yourself, and that may be it's a journey. It's not something that's going to happen immediately overnight. So, give yourself permission to explore it, but also give yourself permission for time. And, because again, there's no set parameters on, what age or when or, how you do something. It's your journey. So go explore that. And of course, if you also, please feel free to follow and connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm also frequently on Clubhouse and do 2 rooms on the Thought Leadership Branding Club on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. So I hope you'll check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie. Indra, go ahead.
So I really feel like this topic, this is a wonderful topic, Bobby, and thank you for choosing that for today. It is a topic that we could probably have a series on, Bobby, over a series of, 4 weeks at least and get really in depth with it. But the thing is, I think we all are so fine-tuned differently. And it's about, figuring out on a daily basis, what do we need? And having a look, I started this, doing these morning routines where I get up and no matter what busy day I have, I schedule an extra 30 to 40 minutes for myself every morning. And it's really made a big difference with wherever I am in my process of passion and purpose and just living my life, because it's my time, right? And, if you have a family, it might even be more valuable to set yourself up. And it is even really a great time for clarity. You can actually do a couple of things for yourself to set yourself up for the day. Just write 3 things out that you're grateful for. Make sure that you have time to stretch your body a little bit, take some deep breaths, look outside, just, get some sunshine if you can, and also that first 30 minutes, stay away from technology. Don't touch your emails, don't touch your phone. This is your time. Read for 10 minutes, something like that, 15, 20 minutes, read, open your mind, do a meditation, for 10 minutes. Like you could actually fit quite a few things into 30 or 40 minutes in the morning and you'd be surprised. But that can actually really help you, particularly if you are struggling with your passion, your purpose. And I almost think I still am in some ways, on a daily basis. But this is kind of this extra time that I schedule in, and you might even think of it as it's an intentional break for myself. And if you feel like you wake up and you just need to, just forget about what you had planned the night before and just do intuitively what you need in that morning, that can really help. There is no schedule for any of us to achieve certain things at a certain time, at a certain age in our life. We can change our direction at any moment. So never feel like limited. And, look, our self talk is really ultimately what we can really rely on 100%. Um, it's great to look externally, but rely on yourself and be aware of your own self talk and reframe things for yourself in the moment if you need to get yourself back on track. One last thing I also want to say is that we really look, kindness is a big thing, and it's really promoted to be kind to everybody externally, but be kind to yourself no matter where you are in your life. Kindness to yourself is the number one thing. And then when our cup is full, we are able to just give with abundance to others. But if we're not in that position, that's okay. And we have to be kind to ourselves, particularly, with this path of life and balancing everything with our passion and our purpose and just our day-to-day life. So I think that's really important. I wanted to say that I've completed some of Bobby's courses on the TEDx speaking, and I think they're wonderful. I've had a lot of professional hosting classes, and what I found with Bobby's is that he really went into detail and content and things that I hadn't really thought about before. So I would encourage everybody to sign up to that. It is a wonderful course, and I have not put my pieces together, but pretty much I feel equipped, that if I did go and in that direction, decide it's my time, which I will, it will be time. But Bobby really gave me all the pieces that I needed of the puzzle that I was kind of missing before. So absolutely, sign up for that. Make sure that you're following Melanie and Bobby if you're not already, and because they're great accounts to follow. And the other thing is the Positivity Vibe Tribe. On Wednesday, we are having a introvert space, and that's at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've popped it in the chat, and it's also in the nest, and it's on my profile. And anybody that hasn't joined the Positivity Vibe Tribe, we are shy of, I think, 15 people to make our 8,000 community. So please head over to my profile page and join the Positivity Vibe Tribe if you're not already a member. And so much grateful to all the members that have joined already, and all the content that you provide in the community. Well, that's it for me. It's a wrap. And until Wednesday, I'm sending you all love, light, and blessings.
Thanks, Indra. Thanks, Melanie, for that. And, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank my co-hosts. I want to thank the speakers on stage. I want to thank the audience. You guys have been really great. You can see all the stuff that I'm up to. I mean, I'm doing the April 12th storytelling workshop. That's free. I'm doing the TEDx workshop on 29th, which is free. I also do rooms. I'm doing a room on LinkedIn Audio tomorrow at 4 p.m. on how to transition from corporate to coaching. And I also do one on Thursdays at 2 p.m. on LinkedIn Audio as well. So we do Power Connection every week at 11 a.m. here on Twitter Spaces. It's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm glad to have all of you here with me. My final message for you is that, finding your passion and purpose is a gift if you are willing to put the time in to do it. But it also takes work, guys. You have to put the work in to do it. And it's a process that is there for the rest of your life, because as you change, as you evolve and grow, you have to kind of relook at it. Where does my passion purpose fit where I am 2 years, 3 years, 5 years later? So it's a really important step on that journey to more meaningfulness, more fulfillment, more joy, more impact. And ultimately, are you trying to build that story legacy that is the one that you want? So that's why we focus on that. And having a community, having mindset, having self-care, having people who care about you, having a right why statement and vision statement to propel you forward. These are all things you need to work on and have for yourself to help you get to that next level. Have the clarity, have the confidence, have the community, have the coaching, have the consistency. And if you do that, I can tell you, you will be much more likely to have the success you want and that you deserve. So with that, I thank you for this. Please share the replay. We'll see you guys next week. I'll see you in other rooms as well. If you want to learn more about what I do, you can always ping me and check out the Thought Leadership Brand Club that we're doing. We actually have our weekly calls every Thursday and Friday, and at the end of the month we have Bring a Friend Days. So you can also ping me about that. With that, have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.